I rise today to discuss Title 30 of the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, a title that has become referred to as the land package. Now, as with most of the items that Congress considers, this provision has generated some controversy. For my part, however, it appears that many of the concerns here are outpaced by the substance of good public lands policy being advanced here and the economic development opportunities that it will generate. Of the bills that the committees of jurisdiction included in the package, all have some form of committee procedure in either the House or the Senate. 34 of the measures have passed the House on suspension. Another 9 have passed the Senate by unanimous consent. And it's also worth noting that because the federal government owns so much land, particularly in the western United States, Congress has to approve all sorts of transactions involving these public lands, no matter how small the tract might be. On the substance, I believe that the bipartisan group that assembled this package of bills struck a pretty good balance, deferring to intrastate priorities that will promote responsible economic growth. In Arizona, for example, I was pleased to see the inclusion of the Southeast Land Exchange and Conservation Act. This was a bill sponsored by my colleague, John McCain, and I was happy to join him to advance the measure. It also shares bipartisan support in the House among members of Arizona's House delegation, Representatives Gosar, Kirkpatrick, Franks, Salmon, and Schweikert. Now, at its core, this bill will facilitate access to the largest copper ore deposit in North America. By some estimates, the economic impact of the mine could exceed $60 billion over the course of mine operations, and it will support approximately 3,700 direct and indirect jobs annually. It's also worth noting that copper is a critical component in most technologies, from weapon systems to computers to automobiles to turbines that generate electricity, just to name a few. This mine would supply an amount of copper roughly equivalent to 25% of the U.S. demand. And also, notably, what this bill does in terms of conservation. It would preserve more than 5,300 acres of conservation lands in Arizona. Now, despite the broad benefits for economic development and conservation, as well as the bill's bipartisan support, there has been some opposition. We have done our best to include some provisions that address these concerns. For instance, the land exchange would not occur until after completion of a NEPA environmental impact statement. It will also generate a special management area around the land, or the large escarpment known as Apache Leap. Likewise, it will provide protections for Native Americans to continue traditional gatherings and ceremonies after the land exchange has been completed, so long as it remains safe to do so. I would also note that Resolution Copper has proactively sought ways to address its anticipated water needs. To that end, I was encouraged to learn that the company has entered into a contract with the Gila River Indian community to use a portion of the tribe's water supplies to meet the long-term needs of the mine. This is further evidence of how the measure, even before it's passed, can help foster economic opportunities for Indian and non-Indian communities around the state. I'd also like to take a moment to talk about a couple of the other positive provisions in the lands package. From a resource management perspective, it would support further economic activity in federal lands, or on federal lands, by conveying approximately 110,000 acres of land out of the federal estate. This not only includes the aforementioned Resolution Copper project, but a copper mine in Nevada, timber harvests in Alaska, and coal production in Montana. Now, the lands package also includes a provision that would streamline the permitting process for oil and gas leases. This is critical. We've seen the pace of oil and gas production on federal lands decline in recent years, while development on private lands has increased significantly. This measure also improves the permitting process for grazing and makes a down payment on so-called payment in lieu of taxes, or PILT. Now, this is critical in helping communities that are burdened with tracts of federal land to meet the obligation of providing services related to those land without the corresponding tax base. This applies to a lot of the land in rural Arizona. Although reasonable people can disagree, I believe that this is a good measure for the state of Arizona and for the United States as a whole, and I'm pleased to see that it will advance as part of this package. I know the lands package was difficult to negotiate. They always are. It has achieved strong bipartisan support, and I think it does strike the right balance between deference to intrastate concerns and federal lands decisions. So, Mr. President, I urge support of the legislation and would yield back the balance of my time.